Woo! Episode 18. Who would have thought? 4 months. Wow, time flies. And the show is going great. But enough about all this resting on past laurels. Let's focus on what's happening now. Sort of. For my American listeners living in a certain city in the northeast United States, the past week or so has likely not been very calm. Matter of fact, this city has likely been the opposite of calm. Which city am I referring to, you might wonder? The city of Baltimore, located in the U.S. state of Maryland. What's been happening in Baltimore that's so bad? Well, before I answer that question, it's probably best if we start from the beginning and the cause that led to this effect. So on the 12th of April this year, an African-American man and resident of Baltimore by the name of Freddie Gray was arrested by police for allegedly possessing an illegal switchblade. Though he was apparently in good health at the time of his arrest, Freddie Gray actually fell into a coma while being transported by police and suffered neck and spinal injuries. 1 week later, Freddie Gray would pass away due to his injuries. Naturally, questions by members of the Baltimore community arose as to how Freddie Gray, who was in good health prior to arrest, could have possibly been injured so much while in police transport to end up in a coma. So, given the obvious reasons to suspect foul play on the part of the police officers who arrested Gray, protests sprung up demanding justice for Freddie Gray. The first notable protest happened on April 25th in downtown Baltimore. For the most part, the protest was initially moderately peaceful, but it would seem agitators got their way as some people became violent. 5 police vehicles were damaged and police were pelted with rocks during this protest. At least 34 people were arrested during the riots, and 6 police officers were injured. 2 photographers at the scene also had a rather inconvenient experience with police, to say the least. J.M. Giordano, a photographer of the Baltimore City paper, was swarmed and beaten by 2 police officers in riot gear. And Sait Serkan Gurbuz, a Reuters photographer who filmed the beating from the sidewalk, was detained and taken away in a police van. He was later released and cited for disorderly conduct. Obviously, this was not the best way for police officers to act and be portrayed in media at the time of an uneasy relationship with the general public. Oh, but it gets worse. Because 2 days later, after the funeral of Freddie Gray, a picture of rioters from the April 25th protest was spread on social media with a message calling for more violent protest at 3 p.m. at a local mall. Police caught wind of this and took preemptive action by detaining any buses in the area around the hour of 2 in the afternoon and had the students detained for a half hour or so before things got bad. Riots erupted as what is believed to be mostly high school students began hurling bricks and rocks at police. The police officers responded by doing the same. Patrol cars and a police cruiser were destroyed, as well as 15 officers were injured, some with broken bones. And a CVS pharmacy was looted and set ablaze by rioters. Attempts to put out the fire were hindered as a fire hose was punctured by a protester. The next day, the rest of the United States had its eyes on what was happening in Baltimore because the city's mayor's office reported the riot of the previous night had resulted in 144 vehicle fires, 19 structural fires, and nearly 200 arrests. A curfew was put into effect for people to be at home by 10 p.m. to prevent further violence, and the Maryland Army and National Guard was deployed, and a state of emergency was declared in the city of Baltimore. The curfew was enforced the same day as crowds had to be dispersed for violating curfew, and about 10 arrests were made. In the past few days since then, things have settled down somewhat. Residents of the city have worked with firefighter crews to clear up debris and trash from areas affected by rioting. And just today, this Sunday, this is actually happening now, the overnight curfew has been lifted. Most politicians and even local gangs, however, those who are even in support of justice being done to the officers involved in Freddie Gray's death, have condemned the violent riots that occurred the past week. But that does bring me back to what this story was originally about. Whatever did happen to the officers involved in Freddie Gray's arrest? Was there foul play? Well, it would appear so, as on May 1st, this past Friday, Freddie Gray's death was ruled a homicide as a result of what is called rough riding. For those of you unaware, it is when the police put a person who is handcuffed in a police van and don't put him with the seatbelt, and then they drive erratically, causing the handcuffed individual to be thrown about violently. Legal charges have been pressed against the 6 officers involved, and those charges do include second-degree murder, which I feel is a step in the right direction. As someone who is trying to look at this in an unbiased way, I think it's fair to say that these officers did not do something that was right, and we can only hope the correct individuals are properly punished for their acts. But what are my thoughts? Not just on this situation, but on the growing attention being given to what some would call unwarranted violence towards particularly black males by police officers, whether in the form of shooting, a chokehold, or whatever the case might be. Well, I would argue that both sides of the equation have room for improvement in how they handle certain situations, and more efforts towards building cooperation and trust between the police force and the community as a whole need to be made. The reality is, though, there are bad cops, but there are also bad people out there who are not police officers, and these are people that the police are responsible for pursuing and protecting the general public from. Though the realist in me would believe there are some bad cops out there, the optimist in me wants to believe that they make up a smaller portion of the police force than the good ones. After all, how can we hope to have a civil society when we can't trust those who we have assigned to protect us from those who would seek to do us harm? Officers should be held accountable for their actions, no question about it, but they should be held accountable just as much as the average citizen. But the average citizen should also understand the strains of the occupation the officers keep. Sometimes mistakes happen, sometimes intentional wrongdoing does occur. It is not wrong to seek justice in the case of the latter situation, but we should never forget that the police are also people, just like you and me, and that violence can only beget more violence, and 2 wrongs don't make a right. Okay, so let's move on now, or at least attempt to, with the segment, Nature Hates Us. Cockroaches. Need I say more? Okay, fine, I'll say more. Cockroaches are believed to have been around for a long time. The earliest cockroach-like fossils are from 354 to 295 million years ago, though these resemble mantises more so than the modern cockroach. The earliest fossil similar to the modern cockroach dates back to 145 to 65 million years ago. So yeah, these bastards have been around for a long time. And while there are currently about 4,600 different species of them, only about 30 of them are associated with human habitats. 4 of those 30 species are well known as pests. The word pest in science, when used to label an organism, means that this animal is either detrimental to humans or is simply a nuisance to us. In many ways, roaches are not the most dangerous of pests, as they're rather small. But if it weren't for their small size, they'd likely be humanity's biggest threat. Just listen to these facts about them. They're rather frightening. Cockroaches are really difficult to eradicate. I mean, once they've infested an area, there are probably going to be a lot of them, and it's going to be really hard to get rid of them. Yeah. Some of them have been known to live up to 3 months without food, and a full month without water. So they can go. They can go, yeah. Some of them can even go without air for up to 45 minutes. They've actually done tests where they've submerged one underwater for 30 minutes, and it has come back. They can eat and survive off of almost anything, ranging from waste, garbage, or something as small as the glue on the back of a postage stamps. There have even been instances of them eating their own, in other words, cannibalism, mostly with a live one trying to eat a dead one. But the most frightening thing about them has to be the resilience and capacity to survive a jolt in radiation, like, say, an atomic bomb. Fortunately, like I said before, they're small, and let us hope that never changes. That said, even with their small frames, cockroaches are undoubtedly proof that nature doesn't always need to throw a large, human-eating behemoth at us to let us know how much it hates us, because these little bastards are likely never going to go away. Anyways, last but not least, here's a recommendation. Today's recommendation is by an author whose work I previously recommended last month on Easter. This book is actually a prequel to the one I recommended last time. The book is called Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. Much like the book from last month, which was the Da Vinci Code, this book also follows symbologist Robert Langdon as he seeks to solve a mystery involving the death of a renowned scientist whose creation could potentially be used to destroy the Vatican. The book has an air of mystery with a fair share of secret societies, hidden codes, and various plot twists. The thriller is sure to keep you on your toes throughout its entirety, so feel free to check it out. And with that, I'd say that's a wrap. Have a great Sunday, my listeners, and I'll see you next week.
You are